You can't believe her. Look at the hair, the clothes, the constant cheerfulness. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I apologize about being late to this audio commentary. Just a lot of things happening at once, nothing too serious. I was torn on whether to go ahead and just do the commentary or not, but you know what? I'm doing another commentary tomorrow morning, or plan to. So I'm ready to knock this puppy dog out now. So that's the first thing. I apologize about being late. Just been very busy, slightly under the weather, dealing with train BS. The thing. So at any rate, I'm ready to knock this out right now. So I am paused at the Paramount logo on Amazon for a Very Brady sequel. Now, I saw a Very Brady sequel after it came out in theaters. I think I saw it on video, if I'm not mistaken. I saw the first one in the theater, but I saw the second movie on VHS. And I remember enjoying the sequel for what it was. I mean, it kind of outdid itself with the guest stars and everything like that. But it was still a lot of fun. I just don't think it was as fun as the first movie. And yet I still thoroughly enjoyed it. And when I saw it again years later, especially after watching some of the Brady Bunch episodes for the very first time, which shout out to John Cyruga. You have no idea how much I appreciate you giving me your top 11 recommendations, which I will list on this commentary. I think it's important to understand that, I had never seen a full episode of the show before these two commentaries. I'm glad I finally was able to take a taste of it at the very least. And like I said, surprisingly enjoyed it more than I ever thought I was going to be. Sort of like the same way with the sequel, a Very Brady sequel. So I just saw this again for the third time today. Still laughed, maybe not quite as much as the first movie. And here again, I think the cast is just as enthusiastic and bring maybe even more to the table this time. The story, I don't think, is quite as strong as the first one. But anyway, I'm ready to get started. I am paused at the Paramount logo on Amazon Prime for a Very Brady sequel. Let's go ahead and get started. Start on 3, 2, 1, and play. So yeah, rated PG-13 for alcohol use, drug use, so many other things. Just to give you a taste of what we're in for with this sequel. Like all great sequels, this movie really does double down on a lot of what made the first movie so good and so funny. Yes, I do like this sequel. I think it's a good sequel. I prefer the first one. And I do think that, I think the sequel is absolutely worth seeing if you like the first one. But be forewarned, up until now, when I've watched these movies, I've always watched them back to back, one right after the other. It's sort of like the same thing where there's certain TV shows that you just don't want to binge watch because you might just end up being burned out a bit too quickly. This is a situation where I would say, unless you're a hardcore Brady fan, give a little separation between the two movies, maybe a day or two, maybe a week. I think 90 minutes of Brady Bunch is enough. Like watching 3 episodes of the original sitcom would be enough, and then you need to take a break, at least from my perspective. And here again, I know that may sound like I didn't exactly fall in love with the show, but I do have a massive amount of respect for the show now, and its fans, of course, as I said during the first commentary. But here we open up in Hawaii, of all places. So yeah, the movie, the plot is kind of centered around, this supposedly rich horse that was discovered in Hawaii. That sort of the backstory of what happened to Carol Brady's first husband. And this was sort of a thing, a controversial element before the show even started, where, you know, originally Mike Brady was supposed to be a widower, and Carol Brady was supposed to be a divorcee. But the television network kind of was like, you know, I don't know. We're gonna say no. It can't be. She can't be a divorcee. So they just decide to leave her marital status unexplained, and so what we're left with is just maybe a hint that she is a divorcee and not exactly a, you know, a widower, or just you know, it's very vague on what happened to her husband. And so this movie kind of answers that question. Which, you know, hey, I mean, I can imagine, you know, one of the screenwriters thinking of this, you know, I know what we can do for the sequel. We can center it around Carol Brady's first husband and what exactly happened. And ultimately, you know, we're going to have an imposter, delightfully portrayed by Tim Matheson, who I have a lot to talk about when it comes to Tim Matheson, trust me. Now, these look like the exact same title boxes that they used for the first one, although it's a little different with the font of the lettering and everything for the cast and crew credits. So let me just put on some subtitles here. So Marcia, you know, automatically we open up on Marcia and Jan, and of course Marcia's getting, you know, all the signatures in her yearbook, while Jan, of course, is again, you know, a little bit jealous, a little bit frustrated. Say, did anybody write messages in your yearbook? Now, I saw an episode which had this exact same scene, or it was so close they might as well have been pretty much the exact same scene from the series. One of the episodes, I actually do remember this happening, and or maybe I'm confusing the two. I don't know, because I saw, what was the episode I saw? I saw when they were freshmen, and then I saw an episode of when they were about to become seniors, and I swore I saw a yearbook scene in one of those episodes where, of course, basically the same thing that you just saw happen there. But here's Gary Cole and Shelley Long again as Mike and Carol Brady, who are wonderful, perfectly cast, as I said before in the first film. I love the fact that Shelley Long has a lot more to do in this movie, and I like how the plot is more or less centered around her character this time. Because in the first movie, I felt that she and the younger boys were kind of given the short stick as far as character moments and everything. Here, I think they were a lot more balanced out. I really did feel like I got to know the children more. Here again, that could also be fuel from the show. But am I having audio problems? Please tell me I'm not having audio problems. This might have been a disaster. Okay, I think my microphone is having issues too, but I think I got it fixed again. I'm so sorry. We are coming up on the 6-minute mark, of a Very Brady sequel. So, yeah, so it's great to see Gary Cole and Shelley Long again. I think I like their outfits here a little bit more. Mac Alberg, who shot the original film, came back to shoot this one as well. However, one major change is that director Betty Thomas did not come back. She, in fact, got a better gig when she was offered the chance to direct the Howard Stern movie Private Parts, which is the only other Betty Thomas movie I've seen. Pretty funny. I'm a little iffy on some of the factual stuff in it and some of the things based on his life. But it's actually a very funny movie if you want to check it out, regardless of what you may think or not think of Howard Stern. But yeah, Betty Thomas went to go to do Private Parts. And so they hired a lady by the name of Arlene Sanford. And if I'm not mistaken, this was her feature theatrical debut. And actually, it was, yes, theatrical debut. This was it. Now, she had done a lot of television before this. In fact, she even did a lot of television movies. Oh, I love these shirts. Love the shirts. Love the costumes. Love the throwbacks, you know, and everything. I think it's part of the reason why, I mean, I kind of wish I grew up in the 1970s. Produced by Alan Ladd Jr. Yes, the great Alan Ladd Jr., who we are doing this entire marathon of Ladd Company commentaries. And yes, we will see the logo at the end of the movie. But we got completely different screenwriters here as well. So we got a different writing team and we have a different directing team, which honestly, the difference is kind of seamless. I don't. The thing is that there's different kinds of jokes, and I actually do. I think that actually was, I think, part of the reason why the sequel was actually very good is because they were bringing other voices and other ideas to the table. And this movie really does have some fun with the relationships between the Brady children. Oh, I wish I had that shirt. I would wear that shirt to work. Honestly, I would wear that to work. I don't care if it's considered loud nowadays. That's the type of shirt I would wear. It's got a collar, you know. I wouldn't go so far as to wear the headband, but now they must have had an expert come to the set to actually build this thing, because now, honestly, I mean, there might be just a box inside which is like holding all the cards together like that, but that's a pretty nice card house there. Oh no, not the bracelet, not the bracelet, Marcia. You know, we're already almost 10 minutes into the movie, and like I said, instantly, like the first time I saw this on VHS, I was thoroughly enjoying it, and I knew I was in for another good time. You know, why not? Another ride with the Bradys. And yeah, okay, so here we have the entire cast now on screen, which is wonderful to see. Um, I can't recall how many shots in the original they were all in the same shot, but yeah, that yeah, grape juice absolutely stains. Although that looks more like, I don't know, that looks more like purple glue or something. I mean, I don't know if grape juice, I mean, if the stains would be that harsh. But yeah, this movie had a completely different writing and directing team than the original. So let's start with Arlene Sanford. Well, she had directed episodes of Designing Women, Hooperman, Wonder Years, Coach, Dream On, the Ferris Bueller sitcom, and yes, there was actually a Ferris Bueller sitcom. Sisters, Artie Hanks, All American Girl. She directed one episode of Friends, which was the one with the butt. The Naked Truth, Pride and Joy, Caroline in the City. I've always liked Caroline in the City. That was I'm a Leah Thompson fan, whatever. And Two Something and The Last Frontier. And she also did some TV movies such as The Baby Maker, The Dr. Cecil Jacobson Story, and The Days and Nights of Molly Dodd. So, yeah, and after a Very Brady sequel, and let's just say up front that the Very Brady sequel, it only broke even. Sadly, it only broke even at the box office. I would have thought that this movie would have done even better than the first one, because it seemed like the first one, it got a generally a very respectful critical response, and audiences liked it. Audiences went to see it. They paid money to see it in the theater, and it did fairly well. Unfortunately, the sequel did about half that. Now, and the weird thing is that most sequels I do consider half as good as the original. This is one of the exceptions. Very Brady sequel is a very solid sequel. Some critics thought he was even better than the original, which I'm not sure if I quite agree with that assessment. That's a very tough call. And I almost don't want to even try to figure that out, and so I'm not even gonna try to, because I like both of these movies equally. I think I just laugh a little bit more with the original. But here we have one of the highlights of a Barry Brady sequel. This is Tim Matheson, of course. Now, okay, this is the interesting thing about Tim Matheson, because I can't say I'm a fan, but I don't dislike the guy, and I don't even dislike him as an actor. Here's the weird thing about Tim Matheson for me. I am not an Animal House fan. There, I said it. Get on, bully me all you want. I'm ready for any kind of insult, any kind of, treat me like Jan, please do. Look, here's the thing about Animal House. It's mostly due to fact. And here again, this is just me. The thing is that I am not a fan of fraternities and sororities. I wasn't a fan of them in college, and I'm certainly not a fan of them now. For a variety of reasons. I mean, the reasons are, there's at least a dozen reasons, and I'm not going to list them all here, because here again, this is not a movie about a fraternity or sorority, and I want to keep it brief as far as my feelings on Animal House. When I finally saw Animal House in college, I saw it, with some college buddies, and the thing is that I laughed. And I liked John Belushi's character, but at the same time, I never wanted to visit the movie again. I understood why why it was so popular. I understand why audiences seem to love it, and they seem to laugh their asses off every time they watch it. Like fraternities themselves, it's just not a movie I want to go back and revisit. Like I've said this many times before. I laughed at John Belushi's character. I laughed at practically everything he did. But if you think I want to hang out with him, hell no. And Tim Matheson's character was, he was kind of a. I did not like his character, and I understand his character wasn't exactly that pivotal to that movie's success. I understand that completely. But still, people fondly remember him from Animal House, and I understand and respect that. The weird thing is, everything else I've seen Tim Matheson in, I've liked him. That's my weird assessment of Tim Matheson. I am not a fan of Animal House, not necessarily because of his character, although his character is one of the things I don't like about it. Everything else Tim Matheson has done, I've liked him in. It's very, very weird. I've even seen him in like Heart of Dixie. He does have a charm. He does. I mean, he has like a twinkle in his eye. I've kind of noticed that in more stuff that I've seen him in. Revisiting this movie, he honestly matches all the Bradys. He matches every other actor in the movie. He is awesome. He brings so much to the table here. He's very funny, and he also, like I said, the kind of rude, brash, totally un-Brady advice that he gives to the kids all throughout this movie is just irresistible. And it really makes this movie, here again, credit to the writers, who I'm going to talk about here in a bit. Much credit to the writers, because I do think that they delivered in delivering a sequel that has different jokes, different plot threads, different ideas, different character traits. Everything is different, and I love that everything is different. But at the same time, there's also that familiarity. I mean, yeah, the house isn't really changed all that much. And sure, for the most part, the characters haven't really changed, because remember, they're in a time warp after all. And, Matheson being, part of that 70s culture, he fits in so well with everybody here, even though Animal House is not a family-friendly movie, obviously. But still, this is going along with the more adult edge that these movies have. And part of the reason why I surprisingly enjoyed them, I mean, these movies were joyful surprises. And I don't use those words ever. I hardly ever use those type of words. They make me laugh. They're colorful. Everybody, I love practically everybody, and they all make me laugh. here again, I just think this is the slightest inch below the first film. I don't know. And here again, maybe it's just the fact that I just don't think that this sequel is exactly prone to watching right after the original. Here again, give it a couple days. Give it a couple days, give it a week. I assure you, I think you're going to be much more receptive to this, because you might think it's getting a little tired, a little old at that point. No, give it a little bit of time between both movies, honestly. So yeah, Tim Matheson here smokes. One of the episodes, and I should list all the episodes here very soon, but one of the episodes I did watch, dealt with smoking. Some of the girls, they saw Greg with a cigarette, and they had a dilemma. I mean, do they tell their parents, or do they not tell their parents? Marcia was guilty for quote unquote ratting on him, even though she was only looking out for him as a sister. I mean, here again, I actually did get into the show a little bit. I mean, I don't know if I'm ready to watch all 100+ episodes, but look, I honestly glad I finally watched the show enough to enjoy it and even laugh at times. Not as much as the movies. See, that's the odd thing. Maybe it's just because of the massive disconnect. Had I watched that show as a kid, I'd be a total fan. Of course, I'd be a total fan of the Brady Bunch, but I didn't. So there's a disconnect there. But here again, I'm glad I saw the show and I enjoyed the show. But Tim Matheson is wonderful in this movie. I mean, like I said, even when he's playing the most, maybe one-dimensional of antagonists. I mean, okay, maybe not. Maybe 1.5 dimensions. I'll give him that. I'll give him 1.5 dimensions. Because look, the idea behind this character is that he's impersonating Carol's husband to get his hands on this priceless horse. Now, Addams Family Values, that the idea behind that sequel was Joan Cusack marrying into the family to Christopher Lloyd's character, whose name escapes me at the moment. But obviously, some outside character infiltrates this unit, and is obviously after something. Now, here we have one of the most delightful aspects of the sequel, which honestly, did this raise a few eyebrows in 1996? I'm inclined to believe it did raise a few eyebrows at the time, and yet there's still a total innocence to this. The thing is that one of the ideas behind this sequel is that Greg and Marcia, not being blood related, but at the same time obviously being brother and sister by essentially all association. But they obviously start to discover each other in terms of their bodies and everything. Now, but here again, the thing is that it's so innocent. I can imagine Marcia just thinking, oh, so that's what a guy looks like with his shirt off. I mean, here again, I do think it's that innocent. They don't push it. This doesn't get, I don't think, near the level of being considered incestuous. But it all it does is, it just kind of flirts with the idea. But here again, I do think that there is enough innocence in the writing. That part always gets me. When Tim Matheson in the bed and they have the same dream, that always gets to me. But yeah, I don't think that this is essentially, it never gets to the level of being a incestuous relationship. But here again, I'm sure it raised a couple of eyebrows, like, whoa, Brady Bunch has never been this risque before. But here again, I think it adds to how it's interesting, because when these movies were made, the eldest children were, of course, like 15, 16. The actors were a little bit older than that, obviously, but their characters were essentially in high school. So, and here again, I mean, discovering, other people and everything, and getting, sexually active for the first time in your lives. These scenes play very naturally. I mean, look, if they're going to insist on being in the same room, look, eventually, they're going to discover each other, probably see more than they should. Let's just keep it at that. So I like how the writers played around with the idea without jumping ship. That's the thing. They just play around with the idea, and it's all a joke. It's all a joke anyway. I mean, there's no reason in the world to get freaked out at the idea. It's like, oh my God. I mean, like, I don't know if maybe some fans of the original show were like, really? Are we really going in this direction? Hey, I think it works. It does work. I mean, here again, these, sitcom lines that I like to call them, Carol Brady's first husband, the whole thing between Greg and Marcia, these are sitcom ideas, and they're blended well enough in this 88-minute movie. This movie is actually a minute shorter than the original, believe it or not. But here's the thing: they only made so there is a third movie. But all the kids were recast, and it was made for television. I passed on it only because of the fact that the reception on it has been universally negative. And as a matter of fact, even from what I understand, even those who love these movies did not like the third movie, and that it was, a very lesser sequel. It does have Shelley Long and Gary Cole, and I was tempted to check it out just for that reason. But look, it's not a Lad Company release, and I'm not going to bother with it. So, but it is out there. But it's only available on DVD. If you really want to watch it, it is not available for streaming. You're going to have to get it on DVD. And here again, that's another reason why I said no. I'm not going to do Brady Bunch in the White House. I'd rather watch more of the show. I'd rather watch every episode of the show before I watch Brady Bunch in the White House. Despite the fact I love Gary Cole and Shelley Long in these roles, and it's not quite enough. And, even Autumn Reeser, who I liked in the OC, even she's not enough. So, yeah, I mentioned the OC and Heart of Dixie. So there you go, both by the same creator. And Tim Matheson just looks like he's having the time of his life. I mean, it's almost as if the role was written directly for him. It almost feels like that. Like, it almost feels like while the writers were working on it, or when they were in the conference rooms and everything, you know what? Tim Matheson is the guy. Tim Matheson, he's from the 70s. He's still very popular and recognizable. Why not? And, people love him from Animal House. Why not? And, obviously he had enough of a reputation that they gave him this role. And here again, he's a perfect antagonist. He's a perfect antagonist to the Bradys. And I actually even prefer him a little bit to Michael McKean. And I liked Michael McKean in the first one. But a little bit more about the director here, Arlene Sanford. Here again, she replaced Betty Thomas from the first movie. After this, she did several episodes of Desperate Housewives, and she did Pretty Little Liars. That television series, she's been doing that for a number of years, even doing the offshoot The Perfectionists. So yeah, she's been very busy. I mean, she even did a few episodes of Boston Legal and Weeds and Everwood and Go Fish. Gilmore Girls. She did an episode of Gilmore Girls and West Wing, Ally McBeal. Oh God. So, I mean, even though this is pretty much her only theatrical movie, here again, I think people like it enough that she was able to get all that work. And she obviously did her job in the director's chair, even if the movie only barely broke even at the box office. Now, they got rid of the inner voice for Jan. I think it was just something the writers felt like was really necessary for this movie. But the characters, look, these actors, they all took what they did well in the first movie and they applied the story elements. And I'm sure they even had some say with the dialogue at this point. Like if they felt like that, like, well, I don't think my character would say this for this reason, without, going, making a huge deal out of it. I'm sure they had a little bit more say in what they could do with their characters and also, anything that they would prefer to do. Because who knows if they were going to make any more Brady movies after this. And even though they made one more, here again, I mean, the kids getting older the way they are. I mean, that's the thing. This movie came out 18 months after the original. But, it makes perfect sense because you need to, shoot these movies as quickly as possible because of the young actors. And, a few years ago, they put out a new Nancy Drew movie, which I thoroughly loved. And I thought it was the very first time that Warner Brothers got that character right in a film. And sadly, we never got a sequel a year afterward. And that told me, well, they're probably not going to make any more sequels because, the movie, it didn't do well. And there wasn't enough demand for all the characters to come back, which is a real shame because it got the Nancy Drew characters and just everything right. And I've read a lot of the books. Trust me, with Nancy Drew, they got that right. Now, of course, this is RuPaul again, and they do this little joke with her family. I mean, yeah, some of this is very mild, but it's still a sunshiny movie that's like very hard to dislike. I laughed more than I probably should have this recent time around. Yeah, exactly. See, here again, the way the writers, play around with these ideas. We're not 100% sure that's Marcia unless you, well, I'm sure a lot of young guys in the audience notice the pattern, but at the same time, I mean, the point is we're not giving it away. We understand why Greg is doing this. I mean, without even knowing innocently that that's his sister. And here again, it works. It works just fine. The subplot never really raises any real controversial eyebrows. Like I said, I think that's a goal that this movie succeeded with. Now, okay, let's talk about the change in writers because that's one of the big things. Here again, I mean, the tone is pretty much the same, and the tone is what's essential with these movies, I think, in getting the comedy down. But yeah, the first movie had 4 writers, and this movie has 4 writers as well. The first movie, yeah, I'm having problems with my microphone, aren't I? Wonderful. Having problems with my mic. So the first movie was written by Laurice Elowany, Rick Kopp, Bonnie Turner, and Terry Turner. And none of them returned for the sequel. So this sequel has 4 all new writers. We have James Berg and Stan Zimmerman, as well as the writing team of Harry Elfont and Deborah Kaplan. Now, Harry Elfont and Deborah Kaplan, they also did the Josie and the Pussycats movie, which I did not see when it originally came out, but a lot of people have told me that, oh, it is so worth seeing. I mean, especially now. It's become one of those slowly but surely cult films. And people have told me, no, check out Josie and the Pussycats. Seriously. Well, okay. But I will say I did not like the other film they made, which was Can't Hardly Wait. Look, I graduated in 1997. I found Can't Hardly Wait and all those characters annoying as hell. I think they all represented everything I hated about high school. And I was just like, now I just want to get the fuck away from high school, So that's the thing. It Can't Hardly Wait came out in 1998. I graduated in 1997. So when I saw it, I saw it in the military, and I was just like, I hate this. Now, to be fair, I'm almost willing to give Josie and the Pussycats a chance now, soon after I finish this commentary, maybe later in the year, just so I can overcome my frustration with that movie and just give these writers another chance. You know, I mean, this movie, this sequel is funny enough that I'm willing to go ahead and check out Josie and the Pussycats, if not Can't Hardly Wait again. And those were pretty much the only. Well, they also Deborah Kaplan also wrote The Flintstones in Viva Rock Vegas, but they also made a couple of bad movies like Surviving Christmas and Leap Year. Those movies are not good. So, look, they've had their fair share, I think, of bad movies. They were actually married. Oh, no, they weren't. Sorry, my bad. I read that wrong. No, Deborah Kaplan, one of the screenwriters, eventually married Breckin Meyer, who was in Clueless, and they had a couple of daughters. But her writing partner is a guy by the name of Harry Elfont, and the only other two movies he worked on were Can't Hardly Wait and Josie and the Pussycats. Now, as for the other two writers, Stan Zimmerman has written for The Golden Girls, Roseanne, Gilmore Girls, and the only other movie he co-wrote was Christmas Bounty in 2013, which, needless to say, I've never seen. And finally, James Berg, the fourth writer. Actually, Berg and Zimmerman are also writing partners as well. So the script kind of flew back and forth between these two writing teams. And yeah, they wrote, The Golden Girls and the lesbian kiss episode of Roseanne, Don't Ask, Don't Tell. And they also wrote for Brothers, Just Our Luck, the George Burns Comedy Week, Hooperman, Something Wilder, and Wanda at Large. Berg is currently, as of 2018, working on the series Silver Foxes. The pilot is based on the documentary Gen Silent, about LGBT seniors forced to live in the closet to handle bureaucratic discrimination. Described as a gay male Golden Girls, it has been picked up by Super Deluxe. It is co-written with Zimmerman, who also previously worked together as writers on Rita Rock's Golden Girls and Gilmore Girls. Very, very interesting. So yeah, both movies had 4 writers each, and they managed to get the tone pretty much spot on between both and pretty much equal. And yet there's a lot of different jokes, a lot of different plot lines, a lot of different character stuff that I thoroughly thought worked in this movie's favor. More than most sequels, because most sequels just want to, repeat the same stuff in the first movie. One of my frustrations with, like, say, Ghostbusters 2 is that the plot is exactly the same. Are there hilarious moments? Oh, yes. There are very funny moments in Ghostbusters 2. And yet, at the same time, the fact that the plot is so exact, it's so frustrating. This movie, there's nothing frustrating about Very Brady sequel. Here again, being, like I said, one shade below the original, in my opinion. So yeah, here we have a bit of some mushrooms here, and and I love this. This is awesome. She gets the idea. This is a brilliant idea. Look, she gets the idea that he doesn't like her cooking, which is true. So she was thinking, okay, maybe I should try something different. Can't fail spaghetti with these mushrooms that he has. Of course, those are not exactly mushrooms that you're supposed to throw in spaghetti. But I'm almost tempted to try. Well, actually, no. No, not that many mushrooms. I don't think I could take that many mushrooms. But I do think that's one of the brilliant gags of this movie is the idea that she puts these mushrooms into a spaghetti sauce and serves it to Tim Matheson, and he starts basically tripping with the Bradys. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, this movie has, mushrooms and, brother and sister relationships going a little bit out of control. This movie does go far in its PG-13 limits. Now, among the supporting cast in this movie, because there are some great people in the supporting cast. I mean, aside from RuPaul, this is David Spade right here, which I have to admit, it took me another viewing to finally recognize that this was David Spade. He's got green hair on the side, and he's actually very funny here. A lot of times, I don't really find him funny. I'm not the biggest fan of his, but I mean, here he actually, I think, has a very well written role. I'm not a fan of something like see what's that one movie that a lot of people like that I can't stand that he's in. Uh, what is that? Yeah, Joe Dirt. Ugh. Ugh. I mean, give me a break. I'd rather watch Dickie Roberts' former child star than Joe Dirt. But honestly, I mean, a lot of his films I just plain did not like. The only exceptions will probably be Tommy Boy, and Tommy Boy is very funny. Tommy Boy is hilarious. But then again, he's also in Jack and Jill and Grown Ups 2, and you know uh, the like movies like The Do Over and The Ridiculous Six. I mean, he makes a lot of crap. I don't think a lot of people are willing to admit that, but he makes a lot of crap. Okay, I mean, Joe Dirt notwithstanding. But a little later, we're going to see some other lovely faces, lovely familiar faces, including some more Night Shift alumni. I mean, not only is Shelley Long in this movie, but we'll see somebody else from Night Shift here pretty soon. Here again, I mean, all these costume design jokes. I mean, they managed, they weave very well. And here again, you buy the characters saying these things. You actually do. Would you like me to tell you what being a good guest means? I mean, that's the thing. When you're a alumni of Animal House, I mean, if you're a former fraternity guy, I mean, do you think he would be the best house guest? Yeah. Mm. And we're gonna see a scene later in the salon because I'm glad that they finally addressed um, her hair. Interestingly enough, the different seasons of the show, her hair was slightly modified between all the seasons. I think for Mr. Brady as well. I think almost every season they almost had a slightly different hairstyle. It was weird. I think this is the one that she's most known for. Don't quote me on that, please. I think this is the one that I think most fans kind of prefer her, and that's what I'm saying here again. Pleasing the fan base is what this movie is all about. Um, but I wouldn't call it annoying fan service. On the contrary, here again, I think it's very uh, possible to be respectful and uh, cheeky and very loving of the original while still at the same time mocking it a bit. And here again, I think those edges is what makes these movies stand out from other shows that have been made into movies. Because a lot of times they're just like one joke movies, and you watch them and then you essentially forget about them because they feel like just a long episode of the show. These actually feel a bit more because of the fact here again 25-year difference, entirely different cast, but still the tone is the same, the milieu is the same. And here again, the fact that the writing teams between both movies are very different, I think, is a massive plus. You're not given the same jokes over again like so many sequels do you know off topic, just real quick. I'm also a huge Super Troopers fan. And, I was more accepting of Super Troopers 2, I think, more than most people. I mean, it wasn't near as great. And you think, okay, 17 years later, this is all you could come up with. Seriously. But no, I think that sequel is just almost as good as the original. And I would put them here in the same league as the Brady sequels. Oh, entirely different comedy styles and teams. Absolutely. But, you know, just in terms of a movie and its sequel working as well as they do. And Jan pretending she has a boyfriend, and everybody's like, "Oh, isn't that great?" It's like, now come on, isn't there like at least one Brady that questions all this? I mean, probably in their mind, but we never really hear that. I mean, I almost refuse to. I mean, you got to think there's a lot of people in this household. I mean, they probably all have a different opinion on all these situations, and half the time we don't even hear their opinions. But rarely do we ever see the Bradys in the same shot. And that's why I love scenes like this. Even if they have to put the camera behind some of the actors, even if you can't see every single one of their faces, there's still enough cuts, there's still enough movement, they still, here again, different angles and everything. I mean, I think the budget was slightly raised for this movie. I can't say that for certain. But here again, I mean, this is a sequel that does as most good sequels do, which is double down on what made the first movie so fun. But the edge is also sharpened. And that's what I'm saying. You wouldn't have expected, Tim Matheson on mushrooms from Alice's spaghetti sauce. Tim Matheson, look, he's great. He's great. I will never be an Animal House fan, but he is great. Those are my mushrooms. There was one critic who thought this was better than the original, and that was Leonard Maltin. He gave the first movie 2.5 stars, and he gave the sequel 3 stars. And that's out of 4, too. So he actually really liked the sequel. And I think a lot of critics were on par with this one, like the first one. It just, yeah. Oh, and here we have, this glorious, 1960s psychedelic sequence. Here again, the last thing that you would expect in a Brady Bunch movie, but it so works. It so works. This is definitely another highlight of this movie, along with Tim Matheson's performance. Glorious stuff. Glorious stuff. But yeah, this came out in late August of 1996. And I think that's part of the reason why this movie kind of underperformed. I feel like this movie underperformed. It felt like it should have done a lot better. Oh, man. Until Tim Matheson gets out the gun, he's very serious business here. Very serious business. Yeah. So I never really got to talk about Sherwood Schwartz, the creator of Brady Bunch, in the very first commentary. So let me talk a little bit about him. He was born in 1916 and he died in 2011 at the age of 94. He worked on radio shows in the 1940s, but now is best known for creating Gilligan's Island for CBS and Brady Bunch for ABC. On March 7th, 2008, Schwartz, at the time still active in his 90s, was honored with a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. That same year, Schwartz was also inducted into the Television Hall of Fame. And according to what I'm reading here, his entertainment career came by accident. He relocated from New York to Southern California to pursue a Master of Science in biology, of all things. In need of employment, he began writing jokes for Bob Hope's radio program, for which Schwartz's brother Al Schwartz also worked at. Schwartz recalled that Hope, quote, liked my jokes, used them on his show, got big laughs. Then he asked me to join his writing staff. Schwartz had hoped to become a doctor, but found that he was unable to be admitted to medical school at the time due to a quota limiting the number of Jewish students. He went on to write for Ozzie Nelson's The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet and other radio shows. He served in the United States Army for 4 years. While serving, he was a writer on the Armed Forces Radio Network before he got his break in television. From 1956 to 1962, Schwartz was head writer for The Red Skelton Show. If I remember, that show lasted for like 20, 25 years. That was a long, long show. And he won an Emmy Award for writing for Red Skelton Show in 1961. He went on to create and produce Gilligan's Island and The Brady Bunch. He wrote the theme song for 3 of his shows, Gilligan's Island, It's About Time, and, of course, The Brady Bunch. And the other shows that he was involved in were Harper Valley PTA, Together We Stand, My Favorite Martian, and Dusty's Trail. But Gilligan's Island and Brady Bunch are basically the shows that he's known for. And I can safely say that I cannot stand Gilligan's Island. I will never watch that show again. It is one of the dumbest shows I've ever seen in my life. And I'm so happy they did not make a movie of it. I am thankful to Sherwood Schwartz for making Brady Bunch movies and not Gilligan's Island movies. Sorry, I'm just not a fan. Not a fan. Now, you also probably didn't expect Jan to call a phone sex hotline. And here again, I mean, you know, the way they play off this is so innocent, and that's what makes it so funny. Well, I'm sure you're the most too, George. She actually thought that menage a trois meant the most. Well, I mean, you know, in a way, it kind of is, I guess. Well, I don't know. I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to go there. Kudos to Christine Taylor and Kimberly Elise Cox. Just as good as they were in the first film. Actually, even better, I might say. And here we have Christopher Barnes again, C.D. Barnes, who, as I said, I went into detail in the first commentary about how much I love him from a 1984 movie called American Dreamer and a television show called Starman, which only lasted for 1 season and was based on the movie starring Jeff Bridges and directed by John Carpenter. And it's one of my favorite John Carpenter films. And it really frustrates me. It's never mentioned in the same breath as like The Thing and, Halloween, which are masterpieces. I acknowledge 100% they are masterpieces. But man, Starman needs to be mentioned more. It's so good. I mean, it's the only movie that John Carpenter directed that actually got an Oscar nomination for Jeff Bridges for Best Actor. And that's one of Jeff Bridges' best performances ever in his entire career. But yeah, Christopher Barnes played the son of Robert Hayes, who was the Starman returning to Earth. And basically they were on a search for his mother, which in the movie was played by Karen Allen. But in the show, they got another actress. I'm trying. I don't think every kid goes in to bother Tim Matheson, but almost every kid. At some point, they got some little issue, and they have to go to Tim Matheson to get answers or get advice. I guess Mike is just too busy working right now, obviously. Now, that shirt, I don't know. I don't think I'd wear Mike Brady's shirt in that one. Oh, really? Sherwood Schwartz in 1990 wrote the Gilligan's Island musical, but it's still in production as of 2011. On November 10th, 2006, his play Rockers opened in Theater West in California. The play concerns the lives of 3 women living in a retirement home And Lee Merriweather, former Miss America, plays one of those women. And he wrote and executive produced 2 unsold television pilots, Scamps and The Invisible Woman, and both had Bob Denver. Yeah, I think Bob Denver's stock went really plummeted. Yeah. And of course, Jan just has a driving permit and wants to take Tim Matheson for a ride. Tim Matheson's expressions are just, I mean, I mean, they had to get an actor who could react to the Bradys, like almost, a million different reactions, and that's the thing. Tim Matheson, in every scene, he reacts almost different in every single scene to this crazy family that he somehow found himself temporarily living with just to get a quote unquote priceless horse. And they hit a fire hydrant. All right. Anybody who wants to join in, we are at the 53-minute mark. We are at the 53-minute mark for a Very Brady sequel. Got approximately 37 minutes to go. And then I'm going straight to bed. Carol Brady made a promise, and the Bradys always keep their promises. Okay, now here, well, I like one half of this cameo team right here. Okay, on the left is Zsa Zsa Gabor, and on the right is Rosie O'Donnell. Now, I am not a Rosie O'Donnell fan. I'm not going to explain why, except for the fact that the only movie I can stomach her in is League of Their Own. I just don't think she's very funny. Actually, okay, I will give her credit on one other thing I've seen. She did an episode of Little Britain USA to be exact, where she was in a fat fighters meeting run by the guys that run the Little Britain show, and it's actually very, very funny. And Rosie is surprisingly self-deprecating. But most of her stuff, I'm not a fan of her comedy style. Same thing with Amy Schumer. She just doesn't do much for me in terms of comedy. Same thing with Rosie O'Donnell. Now, but Zsa Zsa Gabor, she had a delightful cameo 5 years before this in Naked Gun 2.5, The Smell of Fear. And I believe that she lived to be 100, if I'm not mistaken. Just like Betty White. She managed to make it to 99, and she was approximately 6 weeks shy. Yeah, 6 weeks shy of her 100th birthday. But, it's amazing. I've actually seen more Zsa Zsa Gabor movies than I initially thought. She was in a 1952 anthology movie with Marilyn Monroe and Mitzi Gaynor called We're Not Married. I actually reviewed that on Twitter. Not my favorite Mitzi movie, and certainly not my favorite Marilyn Monroe movie, but no, she's definitely in that. She has actually a pretty good supporting role in that. But she was also in Moulin Rouge, Lily, Touch of Evil. Queen of Outer Space might be her most recognizable movie. And surprisingly enough, she does not play the title character. And she was also in Nightmare on Elm Street 3, The Dream Warriors, Beverly Hillbillies, and then, of course, Happily Ever After. She was married 9 times. Zsa Zsa Gabor was married 9 times. The last one, she married Frederick Prince von Anhalt. And they were married for a good 30 years, though. So, yeah, she got married 9 times, but the last husband she was with, she stayed with for 30 years until his death. or her death, rather. Okay, now here's Richard Belzer, which a lot of you will know from, I believe, CSI, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know those shows. I mean, I don't watch any of those crime shows, I admit. But no, he's very famous on television. And but I know him, of course, from Night Shift because he plays one of the pimps that gets pissed off at Henry Winkler. He kind of looks like Henry Winkler, too. And he's one of the pimps that gets pissed off at Henry Winkler and Michael Keaton for starting a prostitution business out of the city morgue, where they give medical and dental benefits to the prostitutes. It's my favorite comedy of all time, and it's Michael Keaton's debut. Please check it out. And Richard Belzer is hilarious in the movie, even though he plays a pretty violent, thug. In the words of Michael Keaton, in the famous words of Michael Keaton, are you kidding? Those guys are animals. They're creeps. They dress nice, though. Yeah, Night Shift is, it's my personal favorite Lad Company movie. And, as great as Blade Runner and Chariots of Fire and even the Brady Bunch movies are, yeah, Night Shift is my favorite of all 27, 28 films that they produced and distributed. Again, just the slightest amount of flirtation. This is all we need. Just the slightest amount of flirtation between Greg and Marcia, without jumping shark. Oh, this is another great scene too. Jan with her Anybody got Lars and Real Girl flashbacks now? Okay, maybe it's just me, but any movie that involves a dummy, where the other character uses a dummy to accomplish something or take care of something, to go into public with a dummy, it's always funny to me. I got a soft spot for these type of scenes, admittedly. And Kimberly Elise Cox is just wonderful. She really nails it. Really nails the Jan character. Oh, you're so romantic. And Christine Taylor just being Christine Taylor. Ben Stiller, you lucky mofo. I'm telling you. Ben Stiller is one of the luckiest guys in Hollywood. And I'm not even a huge fan of blondes. I'm more prone to either brunettes or redheads. But yeah, I mean, I like Christine Taylor. I can't say I have a crush on her. As a kid, I had a crush on her, but it would be inappropriate to say that now. And these supporting actors, they do their jobs. They're wonderful. They kick ass in a lot of these scenes. And sure, they're negligible to the story. I mean, they're mere reactors to the. See, that's the thing. A lot of the supporting characters in these movies, they're basically there just to react to the Bradys and their bizarre, dated 1970s nature. You know what? I wonder if these movies inspired the 70s show. Am I wrong on that? I didn't really watch the 70s show, but I mean, I'm almost willing to throw that out there and say, yeah, maybe. Or maybe vice versa. I don't know. This is like Happy Days to American Graffiti. You know what I'm saying? Here again, I'm glad that we have like a few scenes with the youngest kids, because it always seems like they're not ignored necessarily, but here again they're not given nearly enough attention, and they're not really even given the option to do like little scenes like this where it's just the youngest kids and they have a little back and forth here. This is actually really cool. It's here again, the costumes, wonderfully 1970s. Yeah, kudos to the costume designer on these movies, seriously. Same composer from the original film comes back, and that's Guy Moon. Sorority Babes in the Slime Bowl Rama. And yeah, These Old Broads, Schools Out, the musical, Reality Trip. Still working, still working. Mm-hmm. Yeah, look, like I said, even if the second movie wasn't a big box office hit like the first movie, at the very least, it was successful for everybody else involved, I think. Gary Cole, he went on to do Office Space. I wouldn't be surprised if Mike Judge has seen the Brady Bunch movies and thought, Gary Cole, man. Gary Cole is Bill Lumbergh. I'm telling you. Eater, what's happening? I'm not going to use the word innocent again, because here again, I still think that all this is very, very innocent. Like, the last thing you want is for the kids to catch you guys kissing. Like, uh-oh. Can you imagine, like, Robert Reed and Florence Henderson having a conversation with their kids about that? Oh, Tim Matheson, so game. So game. I really do applaud his performance in this movie. Now, I didn't really go over. I don't think I included trivia bits in the first movie. Now we have about a half hour left to go, or 26 minutes rather, and we're about to go to Hawaii for the third act. Let me do this. Try to stretch out for the rest of the commentary here. Let me see. Okay. In the scene that takes place at the construction site, the signs in the background reads Reed Design, no doubt a tribute to the late Robert Reed, the original Mike Brady. Oh, obviously. The plot of this movie is based on the idea that the fate of Carol's first husband is never mentioned in the original TV series. Yeah, I mentioned this at the beginning of the commentary. In the series pilot, it is implied that Mr. Brady's first wife is deceased. In her interview on the Rosie O'Donnell show, okay, so Rosie is obviously a fan. That's cool. Florence Henderson said she didn't want to have anything to do with a Very Brady sequel. Wow. She wouldn't endorse it because director Arlene Sanford wouldn't let the original cast members come back and make cameos in the movie as Betty Thomas had for the Brady Bunch movie. Oh. I didn't know that. I honestly did not know that. That is a surprise to me. Wow. At the auction scene, the auctioneer mentions Miss McCormick and Miss Plum. This is in reference to the original Marcia and Jan, Maureen McCormick, and Eve Plum. So at least they did shout outs for the original actors, if not include them in cameos. Denied a family-friendly certificate in the UK because of a fleeting appearance of nunchakus. Any depiction of this weapon in any film is banned in Britain. This meant the film did not receive a UK cinema release. That's really weird because, okay, it's irrelevant to a Very Brady sequel. Actually, I'll wait till the commentary's over. I'm not even going to bother. I'll wait till the commentary's over. But I will be doing a commentary next week that was banned in the UK. I'm not going to talk about it right now, though, because we have a commentary to finish. The horse statue that was such a pivotal part of the plot and was always seen in the family's living room on TV showed up years later as office decor in the 1958 James Stewart comedy Bell, Book, and Candle. Oh, Yeah, the classic witch movie with Kim Novak. Yeah. When Jan and Cindy are preparing for bed in the bathroom, there's a plate of lemons next to Jan. This is a reference to an episode in the Brady Bunch where Jan, in a bid to get rid of her freckles, is advised to rub lemons on her face. Hmm. When Carol Brady meets Dr. Whitehead, he offers her a macadamia nut. John Hillerman once was the spokesman for Mauna Loa macadamia nuts. That's like having Robert Picard, Ricardo Montalban. It's like him driving up in a Cordova with seats with fine Corinthian leather. I always wish that he made a cameo in a movie doing that bit. During the wedding scene in the Brady's backyard, you can see producer Sherwood Schwartz, his son Elroy, and Alan Ladd Jr. As I said before, all of these commentaries are a tribute to Alan Ladd Jr. I will try to point them out when we get to the wedding scene. The animated characters of the twin dancing pandas Ping and Pong, as well as the Marlin, the magical bird, were characters in the Brady Kids 1972 TV series, making an appearance in Roy Martin, aka Trevor's mushroom-induced dreams. And see, Jennifer Elise Cox is 26 when she... Yeah, I know. I should not drop ages. I apologize. I should not drop ages here. This was the first film for which Jimmy Fallon auditioned. He hoped to be one of the lifeguards. He wasn't. Tim Matheson played Mike Beardsley in the 1968 film Yours, Mine, and Ours, which inspired the Brady Bunch TV series and films. Yeah, I didn't mention that. I didn't mention that in the first commentary, but one of the major reasons why the television network picked up the Brady Bunch movie, the Brady Bunch, was because of the movie Yours, Mine, and Ours, which was about a widower with 10 children who falls for a widow with 8, and they must decide about forming a huge unconventional family. But unlike the Bradys, who have 8 children, Yours, Mine, and Ours, they have 18 children. I think 18 children would have been way too much for a show. I'm glad they, yeah. And that movie had Lucille Ball, Henry Fonda, Van Johnson, and Tom Bosley, of all people. Wow. And here we have a pretty typical musical moment with the Bradys. I mean, okay, now this kind of reminds me of a story that came out maybe a month or so ago, where apparently mid-flight, a bunch of Christians, churchgoers, they wanted to stand up and just sing like hymns and Christian songs to the passengers on the plane. Now, I'm not going to lie. I would maybe not verbally protest, but I would have to have my. It would be one of those frustrating situations where I'd have to raise the volume on my phone to the max, and basically, put myself in danger of putting more hazard to my ears. I wouldn't have taken that for probably more than a half hour. And I can imagine other passengers being extremely restless. So when I saw this scene again, I think it played better for me this time because, I really do empathize with with the woman, the flight attendant on the CB. Is like, may I have your attention, please? Would those of you dancing and singing in the aisles please sit down and shut up? I do like the nun with the. That's a nice little touch there. Now, I don't know why there's like a 70s design in the plane when this is supposed to be a modern day aircraft, but or maybe it is. I don't know. But that logo feels very 70s to me. Like back when they had like Western Airlines, Pan Am, And here again, like in scenes like this, I'm really glad that Shelley Long was given more to do this time around. Nothing against the cast members of the original show. Their cameos in the first movie weren't distractions necessarily. In fact, they were the opposite. And I mean, I guess they could have squeezed in the other Bradys somewhere, but it's like, well, you got to see them in the first movie. Do they really have to be in this movie? Not really. I can understand why Florence Henderson was upset. I can definitely understand that. But whether Arlene Sanford is the one to blame for that is a little questionable, I think. Gary Cole and Tim Matheson both later portrayed U.S. vice presidents, Bob Russell and John Coynes, respectively, in The West Wing. Tim Matheson voiced the president in the 2015 TV film Tom and Jerry Spy Quest, which partnered the Cat and Mouse with 1964's Johnny Quest, for which he provided the original voice. Yeah. Matheson has done a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff. Oh, Tim Matheson was also in Black Sheep. Yeah, he was also in Black Sheep with David Spade and Chris Farley. Yeah. While some critics preferred the sequel to the original Brady Bunch movie, this film took in about less than half of the proceeds that the predecessor did at the box office. Fans of the Brady Bunch series, as well as the first movie, were disappointed the sequel didn't have as many funny references to the series as its predecessor did. That's a very low trivia bar, but no, I can understand that. I can see that. Olivia Hack wears a wig? Oh, I didn't know that was a wig. With Rosie O'Donnell's cameo in this film, she also marks the second time she appeared in a movie based on a classic TV show because she played Betty Rubble in The Flintstones. I will never, ever return to The Flintstones. John Hillerman and Tim Matheson also appeared together in Up the Creek from 1984. Oh. All right, some spoilers here. Christopher Daniel Barnes has kissed both actresses portraying Marcia Brady, and both times as her brother. In addition to this film, he portrayed Chuck Brady, an imaginary Brady brother, during a dream sequence in Day by Day, a Very Brady episode in 1989, in which they share an albeit more innocent kiss. That's a deep cut. That's a deep cut if I ever read one. In the auction scene with Zsa Zsa Gabor and Rosie O'Donnell, Gabor mentions that she would have slapped Roy Martin and Tim Matheson if she had gotten the statue. O'Donnell then asks if she remembered the last time that she slapped someone. On June 14th, 1989, Gabor slapped Beverly Hills police officer Paul Kramer in the face when he stopped her for a traffic violation at 8551 Olympic Boulevard. She was sentenced to 120 hours of community service, but refused to participate. As a result, she served 3 days in prison from July 27th to July 30th, 1990. You weren't expecting that in a Brady Bunch commentary, were you? At the end of the film, the Brady family reclaims the horse statue for their living room. However, the horse statue was purchased by Zsa Zsa Gabor during the auction scene and then stolen by Roy Martin. Therefore, Miss Gabor is still technically the rightful owner at the end. That is true. That is very, very true. At the end of this movie, references were made to Gilligan's Island. Yeah, we're getting to that. Yeah, I don't know. I love the plane sequence, especially now. I think the stuff here in the third act doesn't live up to the rest of the film. I don't know. I thought this was kind of rather silly wrap up. And here again, I think this goes along with my whole thing of why I think this is just a shade below the original in terms of, laughs and in terms of the fun factor and everything. Just a shade. Just a shade. And like I said, I think it's largely due to the fact that the third act is just not as sharp and satisfying as the rest of the film. I'm. I said this in the first commentary. I got to say it again. I miss Shelley Duvall. I mean, not Shelley Duvall. I miss um, Shelley Long. Yeah, I miss Shelley Duvall too. I miss both Shelley Duvall and Shelley Long in movies. I really, really do. Okay, so here's John Hillerman. This was his very last film performance. And I know him best from movies like Blazing Saddles and particularly Paper Moon, directed by Peter Bogdanovich, where he plays a bootlegger. And he's really, really, really good in that. He passed away in 2017 at the age of 84. Like I said, this was his last film. But he was also in Last Picture Show, They Call Me Mr. Tibbs, Skyjacked, The Outside Man, The Thief Who Came to Dinner, High Plains Drifter, Paper Moon, The Naked Ape, Blazing Saddles. He played Howard Johnson. Dr. Samuel Johnson's right about Owen Johnson being right. And I'm not giving up my ice cream parlor that I built with these two hands for nobody or nothing or nobody. Chinatown, he played Russ Yelburton in Chinatown. At Long Last Love, The Day of the Locust, Audrey Rose, History of the World Part 1, where he played a rich man in the French Revolution. Up the Creek, as I previously mentioned, which also has Tim Matheson. So they are reunited in this film. Although Shelley Long and Richard Belzer, as I pointed out earlier, who played the detective, they don't share any scenes in Night Shift, but they do play different characters in the movie Night Shift. Yeah, here, have a nut. Macadamia nut? Yeah, sure. Come on. You take a macadamia nut from John Hillerman. Come on. Yeah, this was his very last role. But he also did episodes of Serpico, Hawaii Five-0, One Day at a Time, Betty White Show, Little House on the Prairie, The Love Boat, Magnum P.I. He actually played Jonathan Higgins in the entire run of Magnum P.I. I've seen very little of the show, sadly. I love Tom Selleck. I should watch that show. I know. I love him so much, I should watch Magnum P.I. Simon and Simon, Murder, She Wrote. Yeah, in fact, the last television thing he did was Murder, She Wrote. He did several episodes. And he feels very much at home in a Murder, She Wrote story. Don't you think? He really does feel like somebody that would come back to Murder, She Wrote for multiple episodes. He just feels like one of those, those classic character actors who, they contributed so much in all the roles that they were given, but they're not known by name. They're only recognizable when they're actually seen in the movies. But yeah, John Hillerman, one of the greats. So we got approximately 10 minutes left of a very Brady sequel. We just passed the 1 hour and 20-minute mark. The 1 hour and 20-minute mark. So yeah, I've taken down a mental note to check out Josie and the Pussycats, to give the writers or a couple of the writers on this movie another chance. If I gave the original a 4 out of 5, this is like a 3.5 out of 5. It's very good, and it lives up to its predecessor in multiple ways. Just slightly less satisfying, just slightly less memorable. And that's about as much as I can complain about it. Oh! Now, Tim Matheson is definitely, well, not up the creek, but up the swimming pool at least. It's- yeah. I wish there was a third theatrical film, but unfortunately not. And like I said, I as much as I am glad I finally watched the original sitcom and enjoy these movies, I won't watch Brady Bunch in the White House, even for Shelley Long. And I love Shelley Long. I'm not even going to bother. Now, of course, the Bradys are probably the only family on the planet that would pass up 20 million, all in the name of, we got each other. We don't need the money. And yeah, right. It's not about the money. It's just about being together as a family. As the legendary Carrie Fisher said, it's all about family, and that's what makes it special. Even if she was being cynical, she's still right. Thank you, Cindy. I will cherish her as if she were my own. Now, still have another cameo, another huge cameo coming up here. And we already had the little back and forth about Gilligan's Island. I'm not going to go back and address all that again. And they renew their vows. Now, I'm looking around for Alan Ladd Jr. I really am. Because I know him primarily from the Star Wars documentary Empire of Dreams. Because after all, he's the reason why I'm doing all these commentaries, the Ladd Company commentaries. I'm looking. I'm looking. It had been building up to this moment. Absolutely. I'm not going to say the I word again. Well, that's a snazzy little suit that he has on, doesn't it? Tiger. And Jen has a boyfriend now. Isn't that sweet? Oh, about time at 26. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. And I mean, there were a lot of episodes where Jan and Marcia were perfectly loving sisters too. So yeah, there was always that cheeky rivalry and everything. But where is he? I think that might be him with glasses on. It is. He's wearing the glasses there. I'm almost 100% certain, but then again, there's a lot of guys there in the background. I think Alan Ladd Jr. is wearing the glasses though. And like I said, he was the producer on this film as opposed to being just a mere executive producer on the first film. And here we have Barbara Eden, the legendary I Dream of Jeannie, doing a final gag to close the curtain on the theatrical Brady Bunch movies from the 1990s. And here we get a little bit more animation. Get out of that little trippy 1970s universe that we've spent about 3 hours in. I've only seen Whip Hubley in one other film, and that was Ruskies from 1987. Zsa Zsa Gabor as herself. And yeah, right, the horse does technically belong to her now. Hmm. So yeah, that's a very Brady sequel. Now I'm going to, as these credits are going with the cute little animation bits going on throughout, here's going to be my commentary schedule for the next week. Tomorrow morning, hopefully by 2 a.m., I will be doing the 1985 movie Doing Time with Jeff Altman, which, like I said, is probably the worst movie from the 1980s I've ever seen in my life. You're going to have to rent it, unfortunately. But trust me, it will be worth it just for the commentary. Saturday night, I will be doing a double feature for Shaft, Shaft's Big Score, and Superfly. And Sunday night, I will be doing the 3-hour movie The Right Stuff. And then finally, next week, Wednesday morning at 1 a.m., I will be doing a commentary for Unlawful Killing, which is a documentary about Princess Diana's death and how the documentary is pretty certain that basically the royal family basically ordered the murder for Princess Diana and the British establishment covered it up. So I will be doing a commentary on Wednesday of next week for Unlawful Killing. You don't want to miss that. And then September, we're going to be starting the International Movies of 1972 series, where every single movie in September, aside from one, every single movie is going to be an international film released in 1972. And then in October, we'll be doing all horror movies. Now, the one exception for September, which is an international film, but is a Lad Company release, is Tragedy of a Ridiculous Man, directed by Bernardo Bertolucci. So that'll be the one exception next month when it comes to the international commentaries. Yeah, they played the Hawaii Five-0 theme at one point, performed by the Ventures. The Wedding March by Mendelssohn, considered the greatest piece of music ever written by a teenager. Felix Mendelssohn was 17 years old when he wrote the iconic Wedding March, the iconic Wedding March music. Yep. Animal Action was supervised by the American Humane Association. Oh, thank God. And that's it. We end with animated butterflies as well as the Lad Company logo. And there's 4 more movies coming after this one that was made by the Lad Company, and we will get to those eventually. So anyway, thank you for joining me for a very Brady sequel, and you all have a good night. Thank you very much.